Welcome everybody to another edition of Total Sports Radio. I am your host Justin. Thank you so much for checking out today's video. Today guys, we're here talking about UFC Fight Night 79, which will take place in Mexico. I don't know if there's an official date to be announced for UFC Fight Night 79, but we do know it is going to be in Mexico. UFC will be returning to Mexico, and what a great time it was in the last Mexico event, which we saw Fabricio Verdum upset Mr. Cain Velasquez himself. And today we're here talking about a match which I think is going to be headlining the event. I can't really say it is. A couple of people think it's going to be, so I'm just going off with what they say. And that's going to end up being a welterweight matchup between Matt Brown and Kelvin Gastelum. And let's talk about Matt Brown leading into this fight. Let's talk about Matt Brown first. Now, Matt Brown coming off a victory against Tim Means at UFC 189 back on July 11th, not too long ago. He defeated Tim Means via a guillotine choke. And, after, the victory over Tim Means, his track record in the last couple of fights have not been great. He lost to two high-ranked competitors in Johnny Hendricks at UFC 185 back in March in Dallas, Texas. He lost via unanimous decision, and then he lost to Robbie Lawler before the fight against Johnny Hendricks back at UFC on Fox, Lawler versus Brown back in July of last year. So right now, Matt Brown needs to be more into the higher-ranked opponent. I think that, this is a fight where it can get him back into the title picture. I think a victory over Tim Means was going to be a nice setup, and he did get that victory over Tim Means. Some people were, can end up seeing Tim Means pull out the upset against Matt Brown, but Matt Brown was able to, go into his submission ways. He can also stand up and fight. We all saw that in the fight against, Eric Silva, Mike Pyle, Jordan Mayan. He won via knockout in all three of those fights. But he goes to the ground a whole lot, and he's also, one of the best on the ground. He's also submitted, guys throughout his UFC MMA career. Actually, his only submission victory comes against Ryan Thomas back at UFC 91 in his third fight in the UFC. Since then, he has been on a tear via, standing up and fighting, and he's won multiple fights with his knockout. So this is going to be an interesting fight, and I think Matt Brown, if he's going to end up winning this fight, he's got to keep it standing to Kelvin Gastelum, because both fighters are amazing on the ground. Now let's talk about Kelvin Gastelum coming into this fight. Now this is where it's going to end up being a little bit tricky, but Kelvin Gastelum is making the right decision going back up to welterweight. Now let's take a look back at his fight history. His last fight came up UFC 188 back in June, taking on Nate Marquardt in Mexico City, Mexico. So he's returning to Mexico for his second fight. This is going to be his third UFC fight in Mexico. I know he fought at UFC 180 against Jake Ellenberger, in which he won via rear naked choke. Then he also had that fight against Nate Marquardt in Mexico City, just 8 big events later back in June. But this is going to be his third fight in his UFC career, which will be taking place in Mexico, so he is going to be the fan favorite going into this fight. But Kelvin Gastelum, like I said, he did make the right choice going to welterweight, and that is his natural weight class. I think this is a right move for Kelvin Gastelum. There's a lot of competition at the welterweight level, and the UFC has been really getting on him as of late because of his weight. He's gone from middleweight to welterweight, middleweight to welterweight, and he's missed his weight, twice. Back at UFC Fight Night against the Swanson Stevenson's card back in June 28th. He weighed in at 172.75 pounds. Lost a nice portion of his check. He won the fight against, I want to say it was Nika Musoki, if I'm saying that correctly. He won via unanimous decision, but he still didn't get his full purse. But needless to say, he still picked up the victory, and that's when a lot of the discussions about his weight started coming into question. But he was able to rebound and continue and put the weight issues to rest, as he was able to get back on weight against Jake Ellenberger, in which he won via a rear naked choke submission over Jake Ellenberger, again his 10th win in his mixed martial arts career back in November of 2014. He won a Performance of the Night award, so he did get a nice payday in that Jake Ellenberger fight. And then he took a step back, missed weight against Tyron Woodley back at UFC 183 in January of this year. Came in at 180 pounds. Catch weight was the fight. Tyron Woodley won via a split decision, and he was awarded his purse purse, or a nice chunk of his purse. So he was able to rebound at UFC 188 in his home city of Mexico City against Nate Marquardt. The corner decided to stop the fight, and then we now have Kelvin Gastelum at 11-1 as Matt Brown is going to be entering the fight at a 20-13 record. This is going to be an excellent fight. I want to say this will be headlining the event. I think it's going to be a very exciting event. So hopefully you guys leave your pre-fight predictions, as we'll be having, once the event gets closer, we'll be doing a full event, preview predictions video. But I just wanted to come on here, give you guys a quick preview of the fighters of this matchup going into the fight at UFC Fight Night 79 in Mexico City. So leave your guys' comments down below. My name's Justin. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Total Sports Radio. Leave out your comments down below. What do you guys think about the fight card so far at UFC Fight Night 79? I got a couple more UFC videos to be making tonight, so make sure you guys leave your comments down below, and I'll catch you guys in our next MMA based